Hi, this is Inky35, and this is the first time I'm making a video with my voice. And what I'm wanting to do with these videos is discuss with my viewers and my subscribers is um, some things that are really on a lot of people's minds, and that is, where did mankind come from and why do we exist? Why were we made? Who is God? And who is the creator of all. Now, I'm going to be making a series of videos. It's going to be a long one because there are a lot of things to discuss, a lot of things to go over, and I hope to bring to light to everyone the knowledge that I have learned over several years of my studies. And as a researcher, I just want to let everyone know that I have put my life into these studies, and I have actually come upon some fascinating resources and fascinating works, even including the Bible, which it'll all come together and I will explain all of this to you. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to explain how man evolved from the evolution perspective with Charles Darwin, and how he shocked scholars and theologians with his time of evidence of evolution and life on Earth, and how it had been traced through man and the primates, mammals, and vertebrates, and backwards through lower life forms to the point of billions of years ago. And so this is how he presumed life had begun, and of course that's with a big bang. But after having reached these beginnings and having begun to contemplate the probabilities of life elsewhere in our solar system and beyond, the scholars have become uneasy about life on Earth, and somehow it does not belong here. And if it began through a series of spontaneous chemical reactions, why life does exist on Earth, why does it just have a single source and not a multitude of chance sources? And why does all living matter on Earth contain too little of the chemical elements that abound on Earth and too much of those that are rare on our planet? And these are really, really fascinating questions because we have to think, how did we get here? Because we were placed here. We were made. And so was life then ported to Earth from elsewhere? And man's position in the evolutionary chain compounded by the puzzle. Finding a broken skull here and a jawbone there, scholars at first believed that man originated in Asia about 500,000 years ago. But as older fossils were found, it became evident that the mills of evolution grind much, much slower. And man's ancestors, the apes, are now placed at a staggering 25 million years ago. And 25 million years ago, mankind did not exist at all. These were apes. Okay? So discoveries in East Africa reveal a transition to man-like apes, the hominids, and then some 14 million years ago. So, I mean, they were just transitioning, and you have to realize that this took millions of years of evolution for this to even occur. So, it was about 11 million years later that the first ape man worthy of the classification of homos appeared, and the first being considered to be truly man-like, advanced Australopithecus, existed in the same parts of Africa about 2 million years ago. So it took yet another million years just to produce Homo-Erectus. And so finally, after another 900,000 years, you see the first primitive man appear, and he is named Neanderthal. And after the site where his remains were found, In spite of the passage of more than 2 million years between advanced Australopithecus and Neanderthal, the tools of these two groups were virtually the same. And the groups themselves, as they are believed to have looked, were hardly distinguishable. I mean, they looked exactly alike. And then suddenly, about 35,000 years ago, out of nowhere, a race of men, Homo sapiens, the thinking man, appeared as if from nowhere and swept Neanderthal man from the face of the earth. And so these modern men, the Cro-Magnon, looked so much like us that if they were dressed like us in modern clothes, they would be lost in the crowds of any European or American city. And because of the magnificent cave art which they created, they were at first called cavemen. And so, in fact, they roamed Earth freely, and for they knew how to build shelters and homes of stone and animal skins and wherever they went. And for millions of years, man's tools had been simply stones of useful shapes, but Cro-Magnon man made specialized tools and weapons of wood and bones. And he was no longer a naked ape, for he was never an ape, by my opinion, but he used skins of animals for clothing. And his society was organized. They lived in clans, and they had patriarchal hegemonies, and they made cave drawings and bespeak artistry and depth of feelings, and the drawings and sculptures evidence some form of religion. So apparent this religion was in the worship of a mother goddess, which was sometimes depicted with the sign of the moon crescent. And they buried their dead, and must therefore have had some philosophies regarding life, death, and perhaps even an afterlife. But regarding the moon goddess, her name was Ninma, and as mysterious and unexplained as the appearance of Cro-Magnon man has been, the puzzle is still more complicated because as other remains of modern man were discovered at sites including Swascombe, Steinheim, and Montmaria, it became apparent that Cro-Magnon man stemmed from an earlier Homo sapien and who lived in Western Asia and North Africa some 250,000 years before Cro-Magnon man. And so the appearance of modern man a mere 700,000 years after Homo erectus and some 200,000 years before Neanderthal man is absolutely implausible. There's just no way that they came from this source. Just no way. So it is also clear that Homo sapiens represents such an extreme departure from the slow evolutionary process that many of our features, such as us being able to speak, are totally unrelated to earlier primates. I mean, they were grunting and everything else, but we are able to speak. We have the language. I mean, we came up with the alphabet. So this is a real big advancement, and it, after all those millions of years, then all of a sudden Homo sapien comes about within a short period of time out of nowhere, and we actually have language, and we start making the alphabet, and we know civility of burying our dead. So this is really interesting. There was this professor, and his name is Theodosius Dobzhansky, and he wrote a book called Mankind Evolving. And he was especially puzzled by the fact that this development took place during a period when Earth was going through an ice age, and a most unpropitious time for evolutionary advance, and pointing out that Homo sapiens lacked completely some of the peculiarities of previously known types, as have some that have never appeared before, and he concluded that modern man has many fossils, collateral relatives, but no progenitors. And the derivation of Homo sapiens, and then it becomes a puzzle, because we can't figure out where they just came from. So how then did the ancestors of modern man appear some 300,000 years ago instead of 2 million or 3 million years in the future? And so following further evolutionary development, were we imported to Earth from elsewhere, or were we, as the Old Testament and other ancient sources claim, created by the gods? So we now know where civilization began and how it was developed and once it began. And the unanswered question is, why did civilization come about at all? And so as most scholars now admit in frustration by all data, man should still be without civilization due to the fact of the evolutionary process. And so by all data, man should still be without civilization. And there is no obvious reason that we should be any more civilized than the primate tribes of the Amazon jungles or the inaccessible parts of New Guinea, which they really are in a completely other world. They have no idea about anything that we have today in the technology. But we are told that these tribesmen still live as if in the Stone Age because they have been isolated. But isolated from what? You know? And if they have been living on the same earth as we, why have they not acquired the same knowledge of science and technologies on their own as we supposedly have? Meaning, if we all advance and evolve the same way, why wouldn't they know the advancement of technology that we have now? Why are they still living like back in the Stone Age? They literally do not know what's going on. So that means that the evolutionary process has nothing to do with what we know now. We were told what we know. We were given this technology. And that's what I'm going to get to shortly. So they've been living on the same earth. And they haven't required any of these sciences, any of these technologies on their own. And the real puzzle is not the backwardness of the Bushmen, but our advancement. For it is now recognized that the normal course of evolution, man should still be typified by the Bushmen and not by us. And it took man some 2 million years to advance in his tool industries, from the use of stones as he found them to the realization that he could chip and shape stones to better suit his purposes. Why not another 2 million years to learn the use of other materials, and another 10 million years to master mathematics and engineering and astronomy? Yet here we are, less than 50,000 years from Neanderthal man, landing astronauts on the moon. And then the obvious question is, did we and our Mediterranean ancestors really acquire this advanced civilization on our own? And no, I believe we did not. And I'll tell you why. Because through Cro-Magnon man did not build skyscrapers nor use metals, and there is no doubt that he was a sudden and revolutionary civilization. His mobility and ability to build shelters, his desire to clothe himself, his manufactured tools, his art were all sudden high civilization, breaking an endless beginning of man's culture that stretched over millions of years and advanced at a painfully slow pace. And though our scholars cannot explain the appearance of Homo sapiens and the civilization of Cro-Magnon man, there is by now no doubt regarding this civilization's place of origin, the ancient Near East.